So friends, former Vice President Mike Pence has tons of incriminating information and evidence about Donald Trump's efforts to try to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. So naturally, Special Counsel Jack Smith has subpoenaed Mike Pence to the grand jury to testify about Donald Trump's crimes. And now we've learned Mike Pence will fight that grand jury subpoena. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, Special Counsel Jack Smith has subpoenaed former Vice President Mike Pence to testify before the grand jury investigating Donald Trump's election crimes. And now we've learned that Mike Pence will fight that grand jury subpoena. Mike Pence is determined to conceal from the grand jury the evidence, the information he has about Donald Trump's pressure campaign, trying to get him, Mike Pence, to refuse to certify Joe Biden's win. Mike Pence has decided he's not interested in sharing that incriminating evidence with the grand jury. And we know Mike Pence has incriminating evidence against Donald Trump. How do we know that? Well, he revealed it in a book. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. But let's start with a new reporting by Politico about Mike Pence's decision to fight the grand jury subpoena. Headline: Pence to fight special counsel subpoena on Trump's 2020 election denial. And that article begins, Mike Pence is preparing to resist a grand jury subpoena for testimony about former President Donald Trump's push to overturn the 2020 election, according to two people familiar with the vice president's thinking. Pence's decision to challenge Special Counsel Jack Smith's request has little to do with executive privilege, the people said. Rather, Pence is set to argue that his former role as president of the Senate, therefore a member of the legislative branch, shields him from certain Justice Department demands. Pence allies say he's covered by the constitutional provisions that protects congressional officials from legal proceedings related to their work, language known as the speech or debate clause. Now, friends, if you're saying to yourself, that makes no damn sense, I'm with you. Because here's Mike Pence's argument. Mike Pence is saying, well, yes, I'm a member of the executive branch. Heck, I was vice president of the United States, but I'm also a member of the legislative branch. And because members of the legislative branch have this thing called speech and debate clause protection, I'm going to claim that too. So I can claim executive privilege in some circumstances because, after all, I'm a member of the executive branch, and I can claim speech and debate clause privileges because I'm also a member of the legislative branch. How does Mike Pence justify this harebrained scheme, this claim that he's a member of Congress? Well, he says, once every 4 years, I am called in to perform the ceremonial duty of, opening the envelopes on January 6th and counting the Electoral College votes. Of course, we already know what the votes are and what the count and the tally will be. But that duty makes me a member of the legislative branch. Friends, there's a legal term for an argument like that. Horseshit. And no, I usually don't use language like that. But the arrogance and the faux superiority of these ruling class criminals like Donald Trump and Mike Pence, trying to assert that they're just above the law. They're above the rules by which the rest of us commoners must live. his argument that he's a member of the executive branch and the legislative branch earns that, descriptive term horseshit. Maybe he's a member of the judiciary too. Maybe he's a member of all three branches of government. Yes, friends, I'm exasperated and infuriated, not just because Mike Pence is making a bogus argument, an argument he will lose. He will be ordered to appear and testify before the grand jury. We'll talk about that near the end of this video. But it is so exasperating because whereas Mike Pence is saying I couldn't possibly reveal this incriminating evidence and information to the grand jury, he's already revealed it in a book for profit. Arguably, he's waived the right to claim it enjoys any kind of privilege. So what I want to do is I want to take a minute to just go through some of what Mike Pence has already revealed in his book for profit about his conversations with Donald Trump, in which Donald Trump incriminates himself, indeed in which Donald Trump commits crimes, because Donald Trump was urging Mike Pence to violate the law, to violate the Electoral Count Act, to obstruct Congress's official proceedings of certifying Joe Biden's election win. And when you are urging and demanding and pressuring and threatening a government official to violate the law, you're committing a crime. And Mike Pence has already revealed the crimes of Donald Trump in his book, which he has titled, So Help Me God. So friends, let's have a look at some of what Mike Pence revealed in his book about the crimes of Donald Trump. Because Mike Pence wrote at length about the conversations he had in which Donald Trump was insisting that he, Mike Pence, violate the law, violate the Electoral Count Act. Donald Trump was threatening him, urging him to obstruct the official congressional proceedings, the certification of Joe Biden's election win. And when you are urging and you are threatening and you are insisting that a government official should violate federal law, you are committing a crime. In advance of Mike Pence publishing his book, which is titled, So Help Me God, The Hill did an article, and it related some of the highlights, I would call them the lowlights, of what Mike Pence wrote in that book about his incriminating conversations with Donald Trump. And I want to tick through some of what Mike Pence revealed in his book, the same information he's trying to now conceal from the grand jury, claiming it enjoys all sorts of nonsensical privileges. Here is some of what The Hill wrote about Mike Pence's book. Headline: Pence's new book details Trump's lengthy January 6 pressure campaign. And that article reads in part, then Vice President Mike Pence was getting on the phone with then President Trump the evening of December 13th, 2020, just as chatter was exploding on the internet that he, Pence, could delay or block the certification of Trump's electoral loss to Joe Biden. In his new memoir, So Help Me God, Pence wrote about how Trump told him during that call that he should decline to participate in Congress's certification of that vote if he, Pence, wanted to be popular. So Mike, I need you to violate the law. I need you to commit federal crimes. I need you to ignore your constitutional responsibilities because it'll make you popular. The article continues, quote, he told me I was trending number 2 on Twitter as people began speculating whether I was going to participate in the January 6th proceedings at all, Pence wrote. Quote, given the widening concern of so many people about election fraud, supporters around the country were arguing that I should decline to participate altogether. The president concurred, Pence wrote. Quote, if you want to be popular, don't do it, he, Trump, suggested. Pence's memoir stated. Quote, he then went a step further. I might convene the session and then at some point walk out. It would be the coolest thing you could do, he, Trump, said jokingly. Otherwise, you're just another rhino. We laughed at the controversy and at his crack. Just two high government officials enjoying a laugh over the prospect of killing our democracy. Pence continues, at that point, there was no angst between us, and there was no talk of rejecting electors or returning votes to the states. But the friction grew in the following days and weeks, Pence wrote in his book. On Christmas Day of 2020, Pence said he called Trump, as he had in previous years, but the conversation quickly turned to talk of the election. Quote, as we ended the call, he, Trump, said with a sigh, if we prove we won a state and Speaker Nancy Pelosi certifies anyway, I don't think we can let that happen. You'll figure it out, he, Trump, added. Pence wrote. But Pence just can't stop disclosing stuff in this book, can he? Incriminating information about Donald Trump that Pence now wants to conceal from the grand jury. The article continues. Pence spoke again with Trump on New Year's Day of 2021 when the president, quote, came on strong about why Pence had opposed a lawsuit from Representative Louis Gohmert that sought to establish the vice president had the power to reject electoral votes. After Pence explained that he did not believe the argument in the lawsuit was consistent with the Constitution, Trump told him, you're too honest, and predicted that, quote, hundreds of thousands are going to hate your guts. Think about it, friends. Donald Trump is pressuring Mike Pence, saying hundreds of thousands of people will hate your guts if you abide by the law, if you follow the Constitution, if you certify Joe Biden's election win. Hundreds of thousands of Americans will hate your guts. Don't do it. The next day, Pence wrote, Trump called him in the morning and said, you have the absolute right to reject electoral votes. That was a lie. That was counseling Mike Pence to commit a crime. You can be a historical figure, he, Trump, said, his tone growing more confrontational. But if you wimp out, you're just another somebody, Pence wrote of the conversation. In an Oval Office conversation that day, Trump told Pence he had the power to decertify, which Pence pushed back on. At that point, Pence wrote, Trump called his vice president naive and suggested Pence lacked the courage needed to reject the votes. And Trump said, quote, you'll go down as a wimp, he predicted, adding, if you do that, I made a big mistake. 5 years ago, Pence wrote. So yes, friends, Mike Pence, as revealed in his book, has sharply incriminating evidence about and against Donald Trump. And he was happy to reveal it in his book for profit, but he's fighting to conceal it from the grand jury. In a very real sense, he is fighting to shield Donald Trump from being held accountable for his crimes. You know, Mike Pence has proven himself to be the smallest, most cowardly man in America. But let's finish with some sweet irony, because Mike Pence decided to title his book, So Help Me God. And you know what? Those are the exact last words of the oath he will be administered after the courts reject his absurd privilege claim and compel him to testify before the grand jury. So help me God. And that is precisely what the courts will do, reject his privilege claim and compel him to testify. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.